Okay, can someone please check whether the live stream is working? I think there's some problem with my laptop. Why is it that only 13 students have joined so far? Working, okay. Let me just check as well. Okay, let me just check as well. Okay, it is working. So I hope my screen is visible to you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So yesterday we were looking at the query selector, all, etc. Correct? With regards to the dormitory, and we discussed how we will add new child, how we will delete it, okay, how we can actually select a particular element, okay, based on an id or a div, and then if there are multiple elements with the same div, right, or the tag, then you can actually select it based on certain rules, and then you will also be able, we have seen how we will go ahead and change the values, and we also discussed why we will not be able to get the style, okay, of the page which is actually defined in the css file, okay, and we have discussed how we can actually do it even though we are not able to read the style property from the css based on the object that we have created, okay, and that is because the css defines it as a separate text file, okay, and if we want to actually understand it, as in how to how, what is the font size, or what is the color that is used at this at present, right, then you will have to parse the window, okay, so you'll have to parse the window object and you will have to get the computed style, okay, and from the computed style you will be able to get information regarding what is the particular font size or what is a particular color, okay, so that is how you will actually read from the rendered page. So that is something that we have discussed, and we have seen how we will do the DOM traversal, and that's what we have done yesterday. So today let's go to the next set of slides. Okay, so we have already seen the problems with regards to changing the styles, okay, and how we can actually access the elements existing styles, so that is what I have just mentioned, and how we can get the css classes, okay, so we can actually this is actually text processing. We have yesterday seen that as in a simple string manipulation, right, because you have a string which is the class name of a particular tag, okay, or a particular id, and with respect to the class name it is actually stored as a string, okay, so text dot class name, text is the object here which is actually identified by the identifier text, okay, and then we are trying to add to the existing class name by a plus is equal to string, which is actually kind of awkward to do, and the reason why it is awkward to do is because we are doing it by string manipulation, and if you do it in a better way, we have to do it using the methods that are available in the object, okay, so for that class list, instead of accessing the text, just the text, and changing it, you can actually get the add function and add the another class to it. So we have already seen in css, right, you can actually define a particular tag to have multiple classes, Okay, so that will be a mix of all the styles that you will get from the different classes. Okay, and we have seen how we can actually remove a particular child from a parent node. Okay, and we have discussed about the this keyword, the event handler binding for booyah. Okay, so that was what we had done. So here, right, we have two event handlers, text box on mouse out and submit on click, it will be assigned to booyah. Okay, and so let us take a look at this particular HTML and the JavaScript. Okay, so here we have three radio buttons. Okay, so which have the IDs Hui, Dewey and Louis. Okay, with the values Hui, Dewey and Louis with the name ducks. Okay, and then the text is displayed over there. So we can actually have a function where you will have the Hui fetched by the ID. Okay, and if it is checked, then you can alert Hui is checked. Okay, or else if you have and then in the if else condition, you will check for the next element that is checked and alert if Dewey is checked, or else you will say that Louis is checked. Okay, instead of doing the whole redundancy over here, right, that's redundant code, because we know that functionality wise what we are doing is we are actually getting the particular radio buttons status by using the ID. Okay, so we can say that the ID is the only different thing over here and the alert text is the difference. Okay, so instead of that you can use the this keyword and do alert this value plus is checked, so which means that it will print which one is checked. So you have multiple JavaScript events. So like about, key down, mouse over, blur, key press, mouse up, change, key up, reset, click, load, resize, double click, mouse down, select, error, mouse move, submit, focus, mouse out and unload. Like these are the different JavaScript events that you can actually have when you interact with your web page. Say for example, yesterday I told you, right, we can actually even make probably some very simple games with JavaScript alone. Okay, because you must have seen that when your internet goes down on the Google Chrome web browser, a dinosaur like the Mario game comes up, right, where you can actually play that game. Okay, where the dinosaur will be jumping over a lot of obstacles, just like how we have the Mario game, almost similar to that. Okay, so how is that done? Is it like it has, you have to interact with that system, right? And even when you are interacting with that system, you are sure that the internet is not working, so which means that the entire game that you do at that point in time is something that is actually executed and rendered at the web browser level without having the internet connectivity. Okay, so that is also that is possible because we have different JavaScript events that are there, and we will be able to use these events to assign or handle the handle these events by the handlers. So here we have an event object. So the event handlers can accept optional parameter to represent the event that is occurring. Okay, and event objects have the following properties or the methods. So it has the type, target and the timestamp. So the what type of event happened, what kind of event, such as a click or a mouse down. Target, the element on which the event occurred, okay, and then you have the timestamp, when, at what point in time did the event occur. Okay, so you have a function, it's a simple function with a name and then the event as the parameter, and an event handler function is then defined. So there are different events like mouse click, mouse events, clicking. Clicking means click, double click, mouse down and mouse up. Okay, so see, when you have say for example, let's say I'll show you my maybe not required, okay, but you can actually try it on your Gmail inbox, okay, on your IIIT inbox as well, not in the basic HTML Gmail inbox, okay. I hope you are able to understand what I am saying, not in the basic HTML version of the email inbox, okay, but the full version of the Gmail inbox. And in the full version of the Gmail inbox, right, you can actually click on few messages, say for example the check button. So once you click on those emails, the check boxes, then you can actually click your mouse button once and then drag it around and move it into another label if you want, okay, or you can actually even delete it. So that's done by a mouse down, which means that you are actually selecting a particular thing and keeping it selected for a particular period of time, and you are actually moving it around. And then mouse up is when I leave that selection. Then you have movement events like the mouse over, mouse out, and the mouse move. So the mouse over is when mouse cursor enters the elements box. So I told you, right, we will also be able to use images and divide the image into different parts, okay. Say you can imagine it like a map of the country is shown with the different states, etc. So that's actually an image that is shown at the back, okay, while when you're actually moving it around, you will come across the different states in the country, okay, and when you move to the west, a particular state in the west will get highlighted, and when you go to the east, the state in the east will get highlighted. When you go to the south, a state will get highlighted, and if you go to the south east, you will get another state highlighted, and if you go further north, so imagine it like, you have the states like Kerala, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, right, and Telangana, and so you are actually moving your mouse pointer all around all these places, which actually is having an image at the background. So you have a mouse over, mouse out, that is move the cursor out of the elements box. So let's imagine that this is the box that I am mentioning. So this whole box which describes the movement events, right? So when my mouse pointer is outside and I move it inside, it's a mouse over event, and until the time, right, my mouse pointer stays inside, it will be a mouse over event. And say for example right now I am in the mouse over, written at mouse over, so that's a mouse over event, and as soon as I move out, right, it's a mouse out event. And then mouse move, so mouse cursor moves around within the elements box. So you have the mouse event objects, okay. So when you the event that passed to a mouse handler has these properties. So when you handle a particular mouse movement or a mouse selection or a click, okay, or a mouse out, whatever it is, okay, so the mouse event object, right, when the event passed to the mouse handler, So when the event is actually handled by the mouse handler function, then it gets these properties. Okay, the properties are client X and client Y, that are the coordinates in the browser window. Okay, so you can say that if the browser window on the right side is the one that is actually shown in is the one that is shown on top. Okay, so there is a browser window where a mouse pointer is shown and a particular red area where the click has happened. Okay, now in this browser window you can see that you have the client X and the client Y offsets, okay, which are the coordinates in the browser window, and then you have the screen X and the screen Y, which are the coordinates in the screen. Okay, and then you have the offset X and the offset Y, which are the coordinates in the element. Okay, so while the client X, client Y and the screen X, screen Y are like standard things because they are defined based on a particular reference, this coordinates in the element is something which is non-standard. And then you have the button, that is the integer representing which button was pressed. So you have three buttons on your mouse, right? So you have the left button, middle button and the right button. So this button information will give details regarding which mouse button was pressed for that particular event. It can be just a mouse over also. Okay, so which means that the button will not be represented. So here is an example of a mouse event. Okay, so we have HTML with the ID target with the text move the mouse over me. Okay, so the ID is target, and this particular function gets this JavaScript gets invoked or will get initialized when the window gets loaded. Okay, so window.onload function, you have a target variable that is created by that is actually the object referring to the element which has the ID target. So which means we are actually referring to the pre-tag, and target dot on mouse move, okay, is equal to target dot on mouse down. Okay, so on mouse move and on mouse down we are handling it with the show coordinates event handler. Okay, show coordinates event handler. So function show coordinates event and document dot get element by ID target plus target dot inner HTML is equal to screen event screen event screen X, event screen Y, client event client X and event client Y. Okay, so that is based on the event. So the event is the object that is passed to the show coordinates, and that has the details about the mouse event object that we have mentioned. Okay, so the event has the event dot screen X and event dot screen Y, and the client has the event dot client X and the event dot client Y and the button also. So when the you know, you will have an event, you will have the output something like this. Okay, so you will have the screen coordinates XY coordinates and the client XY coordinates and the button that is getting shown in the output. I told you about the game, right, where the dinosaur game is. So say so this is the game that I am referring to, the Google dinosaur game. Okay, I think maybe you will be able to install it or run it even when the internet is connected, but I don't want to show you that the internet doesn't connect because I will get disconnected from the meeting. So that is actually done by the keyboard or the text events, so which means that, you know, I can press certain arrow keys or I can press space bar or I can press the shift button, I can press the alt button, right? I can press any other buttons, and so that is the keyboard or the text events. So you have focus, blur, key down, key up, key press, and select. So focus is this element gains function the focus of the keyboard. Okay, so you know that probably when I go to let's say google.com, okay, and I am not using my mouse pointer at present, but I can press alt, oh I'm sorry, tab. Okay, I can press tab to actually move around in my web page. Say right now you can see that I am probably at the Google search button place. Okay, I'm just using my mouse pointer to show you where it is. Okay, just let me just take a look whether the mouse pointer is captured. I guess the mouse pointer is not captured. Let me enable the mouse pointer capturing. Capture the cursor. So earlier in the when I was discussing about the mouse over and the mouse out, I think the mouse pointer was not captured at that point itself. So here, right, if I move the mouse over the particular object, mouse over, then the mouse pointer cursor changes its icon from a normal cursor to a hand, right? And then when I move it out, that is when on a mouse out, the hand changes to a different cursor. So that's what you mean by mouse events. Just showing you that because the mouse pointer was not captured earlier. Now when it comes to the keyboard events, the example was I opened a Google, I went to google.com, and right now I know that I have highlighted Google search. So if I press tab again, I can move to I am feeling lucky. I can actually move back also. I can press shift tab to move backwards, right? So which means that right now the search by voice is highlighted. Moving onward, Google search is highlighted. Moving backward, search by voice is highlighted. Again moving backward, you can see that the cursor is right now in the search bar, and I can press again shift tab going backward. So it will show me that right now I have highlighted the Google account page, I mean my Google account settings probably, and then right now I have selected or highlighted the Google apps. Right now I have selected the images. Right now I have selected Gmail, right? And right now I have selected the address bar itself of the browser. So tab, and I can actually say enter something here. So okay, and just use my keyboard alone to go forward and go backward. Okay, which means that based on the key inputs, I have not used my mouse pointer. Okay, so based on my key inputs alone, I'll be able to do something or interact with the web browser. So that's the idea with the keyboard or the text events. So you can have focus, blur. Okay, so the element loses the keyboard focus. Then key down, user presses a key while this element has keyboard focus, right? Then key up, user releases a key while this element has a keyboard focus. Then key press, user presses and releases a key while this element has keyboard focus. Okay, so these are all different events. Then you have select, this element's text is selected or deselected. Then with the key event objects, so just like how we had for the mouse event object, right? With the key event object, you will have the key code, which will be the ASCII integer value of key that was pressed. I don't think you need to understand what is ASCII, right? You will be knowing that. Is there anyone in this class who doesn't know what is ASCII? Students? That's a question. Does everyone know? What is the ASCII code of small a? Okay, ASCII is American Standard Code for Information Interchange. That is something that you would have learned in your CS 101 itself. just a second. Why is my video capture not enabled in this particular just a second, guys. Okay, yes, it came. There was some mistake because of which the video capture was not there. Yeah. Okay, so so that those are the key event objects, and with the key events you will get the ASCII code which will represent which key was pressed, right? So you can convert the character with string from character code, and you will get the what character was pressed. Okay, so because it is passing you an integer value. Okay, and if you have the alt key or the control key or the shift key being held, okay, is being pressed at this point in time, then those values will have the true. Okay, those will be true. So the properties are key code, alt key, control key, and shift key. So you have an issue if the event you attach your listener to doesn't have the focus, you won't hear the focus. So which means that, you know, if there is an event handler function that is supposed to execute when a particular event happens, but because your listener has been focused only to a particular object in your HTML, in your page or in the window, okay, in that case, even because the object to which you have assigned the listener was not in focus, the event was not triggered. Okay, so what could be the solution to such a thing? So you have to attach the key listener to entire page body, document, and the outer element. Okay, so that is one solution. So let's say if you want to develop a game as such, right, or if you want to do something when a particular key is focused on, and then you have to press a particular button, keyboard key. Okay, that's a different case. But if you want to actually have it for the entire web page, then you should not actually limit it to a particular element alone. So we have a text box, and on key down, okay, you will have the text key down event handler. So the text key down takes the parameter event and gets the key code from the event key code, okay, and converts it into character code from the string library. So then you have the key. Okay, if key is equal to s and the event.alt key is pressed at this point, then you have to save the document. Okay, and okay, so each time you push down any key, even a modifier such as alt or control, the key down event fires. If you hold down the key down event fires repeatedly. Okay, so that is something that we all know, right? For example, if I just go to google.com and I just press J and I keep it pressed, it will just keep repeating. So same way, it says that if I am doing a key press on a particular page, okay, and I do that repeatedly, then the event handler or the event also gets fired repeatedly. Okay, and the key press event is a bit flakier and inconsistent across browsers. So we know that we have discussed initially how the web came into existence, right? So there was initially the DARPA project, I believe, and then eventually we had the different stacks and the different protocols developed, which eventually gave way for showing something on my web browser or on my software, okay, that is remotely available. Okay, now that is, let that be the concept. So something is available remotely and I want to actually show it on my computer. Now for that, a lot of protocols were slowly developed, and the web browsers were also developed based on the standards that were actually agreed on. But then, not all the time the standards were there. The standards are actually made based on the necessity, right? So we won't be able to foresee what all standards we may have to define for every single thing. So we don't start by defining all the standards, but rather as we go forward, when we find a new thing, when we want it to be implemented all across, then we will have the standards defined. Say for example, we had the HTML 1.1, HTML 1.1, HTML2, and now HTML5 and so on, right? So which means that these are all the different standards. So which means because of this this difference itself, the key press event could be inconsistent across the browsers. So these are some useful key codes. Say for example, if I just go to let's say, okay, if I search for an ASCII code table, okay, then it will show me the different ASCII codes, okay, and you can see that backspace has the ASCII code 8, okay, and so on, okay, and shift out, shift in has a ASCII code of 14, 15, right, and so on. So which means that these are the ASCII codes actually. So the keys F1 to F12 will have the ASCII codes 112 for F1 and 113 for F2, and so on. F12 will have 123. Okay, then insert has the ASCII code 45, then the delete has the ASCII code 46, and so on, right? So 46 and event key code, okay, that tab is 9, then enter is 13, escape is 27, okay, and these are some useful key codes. Then let's take a look at 33, 34, 35, 36. 33, while these are a little bit confusing, okay, 33, 34, 35, 36, right? 33, 34, 35, 36, as per the ASCII representation, those are for exclamation, double quotes, hash, and $. Okay, while in the keyboard press event, you will get the event key code as 33, 34, 35, and 36, while for the backspace, tab, enter, and escape, it will remain the same, and left, right, up and down, right and down. So 37, 38, 39, 40. So 37, 38, 39, 40 again represents different characters. Okay. So take a look at this table as well as this table. Okay. Now there are other page or window events as well. Okay, which means that so you have a context menu, that's a event, okay, that's related to a page or a window. So the user right clicks to pop up a context menu, okay. Then the an error occurs when loading a document or an image, so that is yet another event that can happen. Then load, unload, okay, the browser loads the page. Resize, the browser window is resized. Scroll, the user scrolls the viewable part of the page up and down or left and right, okay. Unload, the browser exit or leave the page, okay. So for example, on certain websites you can see that when you try to click on close, right, they will immediately probably show you a pop-up showing you that if you have certain items in your cart right now, are you sure you want to exit? Okay, if you want to you, and then they will show you a coupon code or something stating that okay, please stay back and complete the thing, because that's part of a business thing that they're doing. Okay, so there are like different page or window events happen, and then you have multiple form events like submit, reset, or change. That's pretty self-explanatory, and you know that, right? So you have prevent default and stop propagation. So prevent default means stops the browser from doing its normal action on an event. For example, stops the browser from following a link when a tag is clicked, or stops the browser from submitting a form when the submit button is clicked. Okay, and stop propagation is stops the browser from showing this event to any other objects that may be listening for it. Okay, so you have other event names like prevent default and stop propagation as well. So we can also return false from an event handler to stop a particular event as well. Okay, so this is an example of stopping an event. So here we have a form, okay, with the ID example form, and the action is you are submitting to http://foo.com/foo.php. okay, and here we are getting the form by the ID example form, and that is actually through an anonymous function on window load. Okay, and form on submit, you will check the data. Okay, so the on submit is an event, and the event handler is the check data. So the function check data event, okay, if the document get element ID by state length is not equal to 2. Okay, so if the person has not entered the state, that's the state where you are residing, or the state of domicile. Okay, so it will get the state. So you should understand that we are actually looking at a form that is being submitted, but we are writing an event handler when the form clicks on when the person clicks on submit, and we so what happens when the form is tried to submitted, or when a person clicks on a form, what happens is that it should send the data to http://foo.com/foo.php. But what if I see that the details that are entered are incorrect? Say for example, the city or the state, right, I have entered is less than 2 characters long. Okay, or I mean the state is not shown in exactly 2 characters. Okay, if I have entered more, then it means that I have not selected, say for example, Karnataka KA, Tamil Nadu TN, Uttar Pradesh UP, Punjab PB, right, Bihar, and so on, right? So which means that I need to select it, and if the selection is not proper, I should alert invalid city or state. Like this can be similar to how you enter data in your IRCTC website. When you want to book a train ticket, right, you will enter the station code. From the station code, for the from station, and the station code to the to station. Now even if you write Trichy Junction, right, it will give you an error. So which means that instead of submitting that form to the server, I'm using the JavaScript at my end, using the event handler, and checking the data and making sure that I have validated it. So if it is not valid, I have to stop the normal process of the submission. Okay, if it is not valid, I have to stop the process of normal submission, which means that I'm not submitting the form to the server at all, but instead using the JavaScript I will check at my end and I will throw an error invalid city or state, and then I will use event dot prevent default and return false. So prevent default means what is the normal action that the web browser usually does when you click on submit button of a form. It submits the data to the server, so you are actually stopping this and then returning false. You can have multiple listeners to the same event. Okay, so you can have like element dot add event listener event function. Okay, for some particular event you are associating it with a particular function to an element. Okay, so let's say there's an element called button. Okay, that's an object that is created by the id by getting the element by id my button, and then button dot add event listener click function 1, button dot add event listener click dot function 2. Okay, so if you assign on click twice, the second one replaces the first. Okay, add event listener allows multiple listeners to be called for the same event. Note that you do not include on the event name. So this is, see, when you use the event like on click, right, it will be the second one that will be used. Okay, the first statement will not be the one that will be used, it will be the second statement that will be used. But if you use click, which means that you are actually calling both function 1 and function 2 when the mouse button is clicked. Okay, so if you have multiple multiple window dot onload listeners, right, usually what we do is window dot onload is equal to function, but we can add and this event and the handler. So window dot add event listener load and function. It is considered bad form to directly assign to window dot onload, and multiple JS files could be linked to the same page, and if they all need to run when the page loads, their window dot onload statements will override each other by calling window dot add listener instead. All of them can run their code when the page is loaded. So when you use this, that will be better. Okay, because when the page is loaded, right, all of the multiple JavaScript files which are linked to that particular page can then load. So that is now we have something like Ajax. Okay, Ajax is something which we have already described. Let the thing load. So when we are going to learn about Ajax. Okay, so guys, are we done with the time? I'm not sure, but I have a very bad headache on this right side. It's like pretty bad. Okay, yeah, but I think I'll continue for the next 5 minutes. Okay, so usually we know that when it comes to client server with respect to the TCP communication, right, or with respect to the HTTP, okay, we know that HTTP is a stateless protocol, and every time I contact the same resource, right, it has no idea of what I have done or what I had done earlier. Okay, and usually whenever you access a particular web page from your web browser, okay, it contacts the user is at the web browser. He is going to view a page, viewing a page, and the person submits something. Okay, submits the form. Then what happens, it actually sends the entire information to the server. Okay, and at that point in time the person is not able to view the page until the server generate and respond back. So for during that period the user waits for a response. Okay, so they generate and the server generates and sends a response, and then again once the response is received, the web page is again rendered by the web browser. Okay, it's actually reloaded completely, right? And it is rendered by the web browser, and then the user views the page again. And let's say again after some time the user does a form submission, okay, or does something on the computer. What happens is that they will again send the request to the server, and the user will have to wait until the server responds back. Okay, so this is synchronous. User must wait while the new page loads. The typical communication pattern used in the web pages is click, wait and refresh, right? Simple. So that is how we can actually think of how we will interact with a lot of websites. Okay. Now this is where you have something called Ajax. Okay, so Ajax allows you to do some asynchronous JavaScript things. So earlier what did we discuss? We discussed that the web communication is a synchronous communication that happens, which means that you have to send the information, wait for the response to be received, okay, and so on. So which means that a typical communication pattern use is click, wait and refresh. While in the using the Ajax, right, a dynamic website that mimics the feel of a desktop app. So you know, when I press Alt Tab etc., right, how am I able to do that? How is the computer able to do it very fast? Because it is stored on my computer. Okay, all the programs that show the Alt Tab window etc., right, that are shown in my computer, that is stored in my computer. Okay, if that means that even if I am disconnected from the internet, it will work. So if you have a website that will almost mimic and feel like a desktop application, say for example the Gmail, Google Maps, the Flickr, even the Google Drive, right, Google Docs, those all almost mimic as if it's a desktop app. So those are all web applications. And now these are all possible because they use something called Ajax, asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So it has asynchronous JavaScript. Asynchronous JavaScript means that is the part which takes over the, or which replaces the synchronous communication. Instead of actually reloading the entire website, the asynchronous JavaScript lets you reload only a portion of it, of a portion of the entire web page. And how is that done? That is done by using the XML. So XML, we have seen that is a markup language in which you can actually define your own tags, and is actually for data sharing or data storage mainly, we have mentioned, right? So Ajax is not a programming language, okay, a particular way of using JavaScript. Okay, it's a particular way of using JavaScript. Download data from the server in the background, allows dynamically updating a page without making the user to wait, avoids the click, wait, refresh pattern. So this synchronous web communication uses a click, wait, refresh pattern, while the Ajax helps the user avoid the click, wait, refresh pattern, because it kind of gives you a desktop app like feel, okay, because of the powerful asynchronous JavaScript and the XML that is used in a particular way. So it's not a different programming language, correct? So it downloads the data from the server in the background and allows dynamically updating the page without making the user to wait. So the earlier synchronous web communication that we had discussed, right, changes from this diagram to an asynchronous web communication, where The first difference that you can see is there is, I would say, two major differences are there. Okay, first is the page is never ever lost, which means that I can always interact with the page, or the page is always visible to me. I don't have this click, refresh, wait cycle. Okay, instead, when an event happens, an Ajax script or an Ajax part stays there, which is the asynchronous JavaScript and XML part, which will send a request to the server, and the server will generate and send the partial page. So earlier it was sending the page, entire page, generate and send page. Here in the asynchronous web communication, the server now will generate and send the partial page. Okay, and so that is event 1. Let's say event 1 that has occurred first on the timeline, and then event 2. So the event 1's result is incorporated to the web page that is being shown to the user. So the event 1 that happened at time point x, right, is now available at time point x dash. The result is available at x dash, and the event y which happened at y, time point y, the result is available at y dash. Okay, and same thing, even another event happens, it sends a request through the Ajax. Okay, so asynchronous JavaScript and XML, and the server does not have to compute the entire page, but need to send only a part of the page's data back to the user. Okay, and using this Ajax, the user will be able to view the results, and this way you will have asynchronous web communication. So asynchronous means user can keep interacting with the page while the data loads. Okay, so I think that's let's stop here for today. Let's meet in the next class. Students, do you have any doubts regarding the topics that we have discussed so far? So as you might have observed, we are almost done with CSS and JavaScript and HTML as well, and you are also well aware that these are all things that can take a lot of time for you to learn and master. So definitely this course is not expecting you to master it, but at least have a broad idea of the whole thing, and even you should be in a position to write and create small things, at least the things that you want to make. Okay, so that is the idea of this particular subject, and definitely idea of engineering as well, right? For instance, that is the reason why you have basic mechanical engineering, basic electrical engineering, okay, basic civil engineering, architectural drawing, and all those things in your first year, right, despite you being in computer science and engineering. Okay, so yeah, so this way you will be able to understand what are the different major elements, major things that make up the web technology. So this is with regards to Ajax regarding synchronous web communication, and when applied with Ajax you will have the asynchronous web communication. If you have no questions, I will leave the meet. Do you have any questions? Okay, I think that's it. I'll leave. Thank you. Let's meet in the next class.